Residents expressed concern over hazardous dump site. Malians agree for an 18-month transition as leaders in the West African nation ends a 3-day consultation. One of Gambia's newest opposition groups says West African forces should leave the country after 3 years of stay. These and more coming on your This Week News Bulletin. It is 19:30 GMT here in our studios in Banjul. A warm welcome to our viewers in the continent and beyond. I am Mariama Cham. We now begin with our lead story. The residents of Bakote have expressed concern over an old dump site they say is hazardous to their health and the environment. In March this year, the Kanifing Municipal Council, which manages the Bakote dump site, said it has committed more than $10 million to erect a perimeter fence and had plans to solve the pollution problems. Sona Tunkara has more.
Close to 500 tons of waste is generated and collected every day in the greater Banjul area. Most of the waste that is collected is taken to a vast unregulated dump in Bakote, situated in the heart of the busiest urban area, Serekunda. Neighboring communities are continuously exposed to toxic smoke from the burning rubbish. As a result, residents of Bakote and Manjai have for long been complaining of the dump site, saying it makes their environment unhealthy to live in. They also claim that both the young and old are developing breathing-related complications. One resident who lived in Bakote since 1998 speaks of the harrowing conditions resulting from poor waste management and planning which span several decades. This dump site has been here even before I moved in 1998. We have been living with this garbage dump ever since. Sometimes they will come close to the houses and throw whatever garbage they had, making it difficult and unbearable to live with flies all over the next morning. It happens such that you can't cook in the presence of flies, and whenever you serve lunch, flies will perch all over it before hands will enter to it. Sometimes we even close our doors and windows due to the scent, and some only open it after we see that fresh air is available again. Since 2017, the Kanifing Municipal Council said it was aware of the risks to health and the environment posed by the dump site, which it said was a national problem, and promised to fix it with the help of the government and partners. However, Fatu Bojang, who lived in Bakote for more than 15 years, said help has not come by despite many calls. We have been seeking help. It has really been long. Now most of our children have become asthmatic. A lot of them have also developed chest pain just because of the smell. The dump site is in the middle of the community. Anyone passing sees the bad things happening. People will even come and dump here. And when the smell gets into the air, it spreads and everyone will have to inhale it like that. Historically, the Bakote dump site is the remains of an old strip mining. The greatest the old stone excavations left behind now hover the garbage of 500,000 people within the Kanifing municipality. A year before the coronavirus outbreak, Gambia's President Adama Barrow visited the Bakote dump site wearing a nose mask because the air pollution was that bad. The president suggested turning the waste to manure. But it has been 2 years since his 2018 visit, and the Bakote dump site is presenting the same problems for local communities.
Bakote dump site remains a concern to residents. A 3-day national consultation in the Malian capital, Bamako, has ended its military rulers' race to avoid sanctions to be imposed by ECOWAS before 15 September. The talks mark the second round of discussions between the officers who on August 18th overthrew President Ibrahim Aboubacar Keïta and civilian representatives. Leaders of the West African nation agreed for an 18-month transitional period. Sona Tunkara has more.
On the Article 19 of the communique states for an 18 months of a transitional president who will not be eligible to contest during a presidential election is said to have formed part of the final agreement of the just ended national consultation meeting, which ends yesterday in the Malian capital Bamako. The transitional president, according to the document in which parties that took part in the summit will be chosen by a nominating set up by the National Committee for the Salvation of the People. In contrast, the 15-nation Regional Bloc Economic Committee of West African States has set a deadline for Mali's civilian president and prime minister to be appointed no later than September 15th. ECOWAS slammed sanctions on Mali by closing its borders, banning trade with Mali, and has called for a civilian ruling in 12 months maximum. According to Article 20 of the transition document, members of the National Committee for the Salvation of the People and all actors who participated in the event from August 18, 2020 to the investiture of the transitional president enjoy jurisdictional immunity. As such, they cannot be prosecuted or arrested for acts committed during the said events. Leaders also agreed to set a National Transitional Council, a legislative body to be responsible for the transition, which according to them shall be made up of 121 members divided between the defense and security forces, representatives of the June 5th movement, political parties and groups, civil society, trade unions, human rights organizations, women's and youth group leaders, people living with disability, among others. For iAfrica TV, Sohna Tunkara.
That was Sohna Tunkara filing in that report. Earlier, I spoke to Malian journalist Mohamed Salah. I begin by asking him how the people are welcoming yesterday's agreement for an 18-month transition.
After 3 days of tense, frank and honest talk between among Malians, they come to an agreement about the shape of the transition and about who will lead the transition. The atmosphere is calm because Malians talk, negotiate among themselves and decide the fate of Mali. Certainly, some people did not agree about the final shot, but we saw in the room that the shot was uploaded by people in the room. So it's very capital, it's very important for Malian to agree on what they want to do in the next coming months, which is the transition which will hand over the power to an official elected president. So in the capital city, the atmosphere is calm and we can see a happiness on Malian faces.
So, okay, the regional bloc has given a deadline of 15 September to the leadership in Mali for the country to be transferred to a civilian rule. Was the meeting really putting into consideration this date set by the ECOWAS leadership earlier this week?
The meeting was putting in account everything that concerns Malian, every challenge of Malian. So Malian were discussing among themselves and consider all the setting of the future transition. It's to ECOWAS to adapt what Malian wants to the role. It's not to Malian to do what ECOWAS wants. ECOWAS need to consider what Malian wants. So Malian discussed among themselves and decided. And I think that ECOWAS will take note and will accept what Malian have decided among themselves. It's true that Malian discussed it and try to find a solution before the deadline that ECOWAS has given. But it's important also to know that we are in rush time, and we need to go with attention so that we don't be in the same problem as 2012.
And finally, before I take a leave of you, ECOWAS previously had imposed sanctions on Mali by closing its borders and banning trade with them. How has this affected the country's economy?
Those sanctions are really affecting Malian economy. For those who know Mali economy have become weak since about 10 years because Mali is under the fight now of terrorism. Mali is trying to set up its economy because of instability and insecurity, and Malian tourism is almost died because Mali is listed as a red line for most of travelers. So our economy became weak before. Those sanctions ECOWAS put in Mali, Malians are really suffering from, and call ECOWAS to reconsider its position and to put end to those sanctions. And there is a point that is very important. Mali needs ECOWAS. This is obvious. And ECOWAS also needs Mali because if you try to see, Mali is the one who served the sub-region in the cattle, in the sheep cattle. Mali is very rich in sheep cattle. And when the borders are closed, the other countries will suffer. So Malian wants to ECOWAS to put end to the sanction for the benefits of ECOWAS itself.
Thank you. That was journalist Muhammad Salah talking to me earlier from the Malian city capital, Bamako. Moving on, operators of the airport in the central Chinese city of Wuhan, the birthplace of the novel coronavirus and one-time epicenter of the epidemic, saw its number of domestic passenger flights as well as passengers return to the levels a year ago. The Wuhan International Airport is said to have handled 64,700 passengers and 500 domestic passenger flights as of Friday. Also the highest daily levels since the airport resumed domestic passenger services since 5 months ago. The airport is also preparing to resume scheduled international passenger flights to destinations such as Singapore, Kuala Lumpur, Jakarta, among other cities in Asia. In terms of freight transportation, the airport has added and resumed 9 regular routes for international all-cargo planes and 32 international freight traffic points since its resumed operation. Last week, the First Lady Sajjan Barrow donated COVID-19 materials to the Ministry of Health as a contribution to the fight against COVID-19 in the Gambia, which has a total of more than 3,000 confirmed cases. Ibrahim John has more details of the story.
The First Lady, Sajjan Barrow, has donated medical equipment needed in the fight to eradicate COVID-19 in the Gambia. The donation, which included laboratory and sanitary materials, was given to the Ministry of Health at State House on Friday. Dr. Ahmadu Lamin Samate, the Minister of Health, said the materials would empower his ministry in the fight against the virus.
Having these kinds of items will enhance our strategy in combating the virus, in killing the virus wherever we may be exposed to it. The microscopes are very useful. Our laboratories certainly need them. And it is in line with our strategy to ensure that the capacity of our labs is enhanced throughout the country, more so in the provinces, where some of those facilities still need to be upgraded.
The proton pump inhibitor, PPI, and laboratory equipment are said to be donated to the First Lady by a Gambian based in Denmark. Reporting for iAfrica News, I am Ibrahim John.
Still on coronavirus, Gambian health authorities has confirmed a new COVID-19 death on Sunday, which makes a total of 103 deaths from the disease since March. 29 new cases were also recorded, taking the total number of COVID-19 cases to 4,003 with 106 new recoveries. Meanwhile, 77 people were taken into quarantine. The country currently has 77 people under quarantine, 1,579 active cases, and 440 probable cases. We will now take a short break. When we resume, we bring you the remainder of the stories. Welcome back. You are reminded that you're watching this week news bulletin. And now to the rest of our stories. Wildfires continue to rage across Oregon, leaving many parts of the city completely destroyed and emitting the worst air pollution. Fires have been raging in Oregon, California, and Washington for 3 weeks, burning millions of acres of land and destroyed thousands of homes, in which more than 40,000 people are under mandatory evacuation orders. More than 30 people have been killed by wildfires that are sweeping through U.S. West Coast states, officials say. Dozens of people are missing in Oregon alone, with one emergency official saying the state should be prepared for the mass fatality incident. The Democratic presidential candidate Joe Biden warned on Saturday that climate change poses an imminent existential threat to our way of life, and accused President Donald Trump, a climate skeptic, of denying that reality. However, Mr. Trump alleged that California could have prevented the wildfire if the forest floors are properly raked. Trump is expected to visit the city on Monday. Welcome back from that break. Now, West African forces from Nigeria, Ghana, and Senegal entered the Gambia in January 2017 to enforce the elections of Adama Barrow after ex-leader Yahya Jammeh refused to leave office. Their mandate was extended by a year in July 2017, and since then, there have been several extensions, including the September 2020 extension by an additional 6 months. However, after more than 3 years, Gambians are asking whether was it necessary for the ECOWAS mission in the Gambia, known as ECOMIG, to continue being in the country. Louis Alsan has more.
The opposition grouping, the Citizens Alliance, has called for an end to the presence of economic forces in the Gambia. The party said in a statement on September 11 that there was no need to extend the mandate of the ECOWAS mission in the Gambia, known as ECOMIG. On Monday, Gambia's President Adama Barrow secured 6-month extension of the mandate of the West African troops from the ECOWAS Authority of Heads of States and Government. The Citizens Alliance challenges the government of the President Adama Barrow on what it called their slow attitude towards security sector reforms after more than 3 years into the post-Jammeh regime. The opposition grouping said Gambians should be talking about ECOMIG's exit strategy instead of extending their stay in the country. The incessant presence of the foreign forces in the country is an entrenchment on the sovereignty of the Gambia and an obstacle on the morale of the Gambia security forces, according to the alliance. In an opinion piece written on Saturday, human rights activist Madi Jobate said there is no justification for ECOMIG's continued presence in the Gambia. He said there is no security issues of any kind to justify their continued presence. Rather, Jobate said, ECOMIC's presence undermines the security sector reform, thereby endangering national security as a whole. For iAfrica TV, Louis S.A. Alsan.
Louis Alsan, they are reporting as citizens continue to say a mixed feeling on the state of the regional forces in the country. Well, that brings us to the end of this week news bulletin. For more of these on our stories, visit our website on iAfrica.tv. I was your presenter, Mariama Cham. Have a good night.
si ñëw bi nga ñëw seet si suma tabax gi kontaan naa ci trop trop.
maa gën a kontaan bi ma ñëwee fekk sa tabax bi toll fii waaye nag man kontaanuma ci sama kër gi man.
lu xew.
ndax umpalewul woon ne ñoo bokkoon nekk Europe.
dëgg la
jamono yu ñu nekkee foofu yëpp man ak yow maa ngi am benn waay maa ngi ko yónnee xaalis bu bari pour mu sampal ma suma kër. te ba léegi tabax bi àggul fenn. te yow nga waxoon ma ne ma bi nga starté samp yàggul léegi nga toll fii foo jaar.
li waral loolu nag mooy dama ànd ak waa Baluwo.
kon su ma la déggee Baluwo dañuy yëngu ci samp kër tamit.
ni ngay def nag yomb na da ngay log on to www.baluwo.com mun ngaa jënd ci ñoom ciment suuf banta weñ ba ci daaj yi nga xam ne di nga ko soxla lépp lu jëm ci wàllu samp rek mun nga koo am ci lu yomba ak Baluwo daal yaay dugal sa xaalis fi nga ko bugga amee ko ci ni nga ko buggee.
lu bari wusi coronavirus lu law la jàngoro bi ak a dëgër boppa nga la jox ma sa noppa corona can be transferred to another if a person sneezes that doesn't mean the person has it ndeysaan.
Assalamualaikum. Waalaikumsalam. Nenda. Seen fan bi ñaata la?
Abi.
Comme yele la.
Sorry, soxna si balal ma.
Balal
ma. Check la bala may def. Nga gele nañu xé corona.
Loo gis mu ngi maa yow normal yow de yow yàlla rek laa fay yow foo amee lii man dama am ay bérébu liggéeykaay yu bare te dama bëgg a saytu suma liggéeykat yi seen wér gu yaram
dëgg la
te lii dama ko war a am ut naa ko fu nekk mënuma koo am
gis nga lii nag am ko yóbbu na de mu ngi fi
lii foo ko amee yow
gis nga bu fekkee danga koo soxla
waaw
dawal Kairaba Avenue boo jógee Westfield mel ni kuy dem Kairaba bi
waaw
booy rombu Alliance Franco rek
waaw
rombu AIC
waaw
building bi ci topp
waaw
ñu koy wax smartphone house
waaw
boo fa duggee rek loo ci soxla ñu jaay la ko
yow man foofu dinaa ci mën a am lu bari lu tolloog fukka
loo ci soxla ñu jaay la ko te ni nga ko bëggee noonu lañ koy defee
gis nga yow da nga muus gis nga lii waxuma la man rek waaye ku nekk daf ko war a ut
maa la wax loolu
lii jaaduwul rek ci place yi dafa jaadu ci kër yi jaadu ci béréb liggéeykaay compagnie yu mag yi
te boo ko amee nag te sa préjo sa xel dafay dal
wax dëgg yàlla
bari
na ñuy dox foog ne ñu ngi feebar te ragal a dem lopitaan
maa la wax lii de
jërëjëf yow dama la yàgg bëgg a waaye tey la rawati nag
boo paree dem fa ñu jaay la ko boo àggee rek ñu dul la ko